Hi everyone. Sorry, a bit out of breath, just done the morning practice. This week's podcast is with a lady called Dr Kika Partakis, great friend of the Academy, one of the students, and also this is her third time doing a podcast with Invicta Karate. Slight difference from the other ones in the fact that Dr Giga is a chartered psychologist. So she is speaking from that point of view with respect to coronavirus and the lockdown. In this episode, she talks about communication, about how to, about things you should be aware of, how to get people to open up, little red flags you should listen to, how to communicate. Also, really interesting I found was active listening. Which I thought was just listening, but paying attention. No, I think that's a typical male thing. Active listening is something a lot more than that and could really help, especially as it looks like we're going to be on lockdown for a good few weeks longer. Okay, so enjoy this one. And once again, if you've got any questions, just let me know. Drop an email to toby@invictakarate.co.uk and we'll get that in the next one. She's due to come back as we go through the various stages and cycles of lockdown. Okay. Enjoy. Thank you. Us. Hi, Kika. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, good. Holding up. How are you coping? All good?
Oh, okay. Yeah, just busy with home life, school life, work life, under one roof, like everyone.
You're just getting over something, so people should just be aware if your voice
Yeah,
gets a little bit hoarse.
yeah,
We're going to keep it short so you're okay as well.
yeah. So I mouth infection, thankfully, touch wood, not COVID.
Okay.
But what it means to people is my voice gets a little bit hoarse, so I'll be drinking lots of water, and it's a short one today until my vocal cords recover a bit more.
Yeah, if you feel odd or anything, you need a rest, just put your hand up and or fall over. That's the right. So we did working from home. We've done reviewing and sitting back, as you said. We're 6 weeks in, where, as you mentioned just now, unbelievable. 6 weeks into lockdown, we're working, living, breathing, eating, all as a family underneath the roof, and probably in some cases not even families, students, whatnot. They're all in the same place, working together. And the big thing that you've highlighted, and obviously occurs to me as well, is how do you, and I mean, how do you speak to each other? I mean, you've got to keep communicating with people. If you don't communicate with people, then bad things happen. If you don't talk, bad things happen. So, how do you want to kick off with that? I mean, how should you be approaching communication in these situations?
Well, I'll say, like you said, 6 weeks. So we've been in lockdown quite a while now, long time, and so month and a half really. And what that can mean is we're all under the same roof. We're all experiencing similar stressors, but people will experience them in a different way because we're all individuals, even though you're under the same roof. And then because you are in the same household, sometimes the serious things you keep them to yourself. You don't open up, you don't disclose, and then that's when things can quite escalate. So it's quite important, really, even though everybody's feeling the pressure of lockdown and what's going on with COVID and people passing away. It is really important that we communicate. I mean, we'd be really good that everybody's communicating virtually like this, getting in touch with friends and family, and it's keeping us connected. But actually, it's really important also to make sure that you talk amongst yourselves at home, as you said, whether it's families or flatmates, even, just to make sure that you're managing that stress. And today I'll talk about a couple of techniques that I can teach people.
See, communication for me doesn't always mean everybody's talking all the time. Yeah. Because that would just drive me up the wall. But is communication management probably a better way of talking about it? Yeah. How and when, and is that more accurate?
Yeah. So, like you said, some people are talkers and some people aren't. And it's more to do with, we're talking about when it's those important moments, those important subjects, or if something's on your mind or you feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, and normally you'll just crack on and get on with things because you're aware if you have a partner, your partner's busy, or if you've got kids, you have to see to the kids. But actually, it is important to stop, take stock of what's going on, and share it, really. Or else you find that you can feel quite overwhelmed, and what is on your mind just becomes bigger and bigger, and then you feel you can't handle it. And especially in a time when being under one roof physically, it means there's less people, we're connected with less people physically. So it's quite important that the people that you are connected with physically, if you have got people in under the same roof, that you do talk to each other.
So some people do want to speak, some people don't want to speak, or some people don't know how to speak. I suppose
that's a key one.
So, I mean, I'm obviously a parent, and so my thing is, how's my son dealing with it? He says he's doing okay with it. I think he's doing okay. How do I know? How do I get them to speak about things? Or
just making a note of what you said.
Okay.
So I can expand on it a bit more. So so there's a couple of things that I'm going to explain today. One of them being is a bit like what you said, which we're going to look into. How do you get kids to start talking about things? What's a good approach as a parent, as a grown-up, to get kids? And this can also apply for teenagers as well. And then the other bit I want to share is something I do with clients when they want to say something important, but they're struggling on how to say it. Normally because there's a worry of it might create conflict, and then it creates an argument, and you want to avoid that, especially when it's something important, or you're just a bit nervous about how the recipient will take it and interpret it. So it's an assertiveness of communication technique, and I'll explain what that means a bit more later. So it's 2 techniques today which I hope will be helpful for people. But coming back to the getting kids to open up, when I work with children and teenagers, what I always advise parents is to start actively listen to their children. Active listening means it's a bit more than just listening. It means that you are, when the person is talking, you are absolutely focused on what they're saying, which it sounds easier said than done, because as a parent, because there is that emotional investment, when your child is talking about a problem, you automatically are starting to try and find solutions to the problem in your head and then come out. But actually, what active listening asks you to do is hold fire on the trying to find solutions, and use that time to really hear what that person is saying. So with the aim that you're not going to find a solution and give them the solution, because actually what you do then, and especially as the child grows up, is you shut them off from the communication. They don't feel like they're sharing their messages with you and you are truly listening. They just feel like they're saying something and then you give a solution and job done, next thing. So what they're saying feels undervalued. So by actively listening, what you're doing is you're taking on board what they're saying, but with the aim, and I will explain a bit more steps, but I'll stop here, with the aim that you're not there to solve it for them. And as a parent, that's quite hard to get your head around.
So are you just like a sounding board or something?
No, you're a bit more than that. So the next stage is, as you're listening, you are taking in what they're saying, but you're also taking in how they're feeling. So if somebody is quite teary and talking quite teary or quite angrily, or you can see they're quite frustrated or quite worried, what you can then do as a parent is relay back and say, I can see what you're saying is really worrying you, or I can see what you're saying is making you really frustrated. That must be really hard for you. And by doing that, actually, you are acknowledging those feelings. It's the first step for that child or teenager to open up and go, my parents are actually really listening to me and getting how I'm feeling. And by doing that, you allow them to then open up a bit more about what's going on. Because the moment if you give a solution in, even though that solution may be really good, very logical, will do the job because it's your solution and not theirs, or they weren't involved in any way, and you gave it early on, you have the risk of they won't take it up because there's no internal motivation to take it up. And secondly, you didn't give enough time for that person to open up a bit more, and then you can find out even further that worry. So we'll stick with the worry because a lot of kids are worried about coronavirus, that worry and exactly what that worry means to them. Does that make sense, Toby?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you're making the ground sort of firm underneath their feet.
Yeah. I mean, especially with teenagers, they might freak out a bit that you're actually taking time to hear them, but do go with it. And even if you have solutions, I'm not saying dismiss them. I'm just saying hold fire. Just park them, keep them there because they will be handy. But just spend time listening to them. Relay back what you're seeing in terms of feeling. That will open up more and more. And the next step will be is if they say something to you that's quite important, even if it's something like, I'm really worried that lots of people are dying from COVID-19. Repeat it back. I can see that you're really worried about lots of people dying from COVID-19, even though you sound a bit like a parrot.
I was just about to say, yeah.
You're relaying back that message and then pause. And what that does, it allows the person to really take stock of the sentence they said and then expand further. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Give it a go.
So you acknowledging their feelings and relaying that back, and then key points that you might hear, repeat back that sentence and back to them, and then allow a pause so they can reflect on what that really means and then expand further. Because you as a parent, your aim is to get as much information as you possibly can so you can figure out what's going on and then with them come up with the solution. So that's the last stage. But to do that, the relaying back key statements, acknowledging the emotion, will allow the child to feel comfortable enough to talk to you about these worrying things.
Wow. Okay. That sounds like it's a simple thing, but it sounds like quite a process of a lot happening that's not being said.
Yeah. Easier said than done, but that doesn't mean it's not doable. So as a psychologist, my advice to parents is take your time talking, allow those silences. You don't have to fill up the silences because that means the other person is thinking about what they're going to say. And always keep an eye on the emotion, acknowledge the emotion and relay back those key terms, and just allow the conversation to carry on until saturation. And you'll know when child gets tired, you'll feel the end of the conversation, but don't try and bring in a solution, and especially at the beginning, because you'll lose all that data that you're trying to collect from your child.
So is that a process that is it the same process for children as teenagers? Or does that
Yeah. So teenagers will be a bit more skeptical about why you're doing this, but actually, with everybody being under the same roof, relationships have changed. A lot of people will find friction, but a lot of people also reporting back that relationships are stronger with their children because they're spending more time. So hopefully these conversations will allow them, especially if we're in 6 weeks now. I would even say to parents, even if your child doesn't look worried or scared, use this as an opportunity just to review, check in, how they're getting on, how they're finding all this. Open up this conversation even, have this conversation so you can don't just assume with them just doing a bit of homework, playing, talking to grandparents or friends online that they're okay.
So So don't. So what we're saying is don't. I think don't make a big deal out of it. Sort of try to work it in. Don't say we need to have a chat.
Yeah, you could even say, wow, we've been here 6 weeks. Have you realised this? And they'll go, yeah, it's a long time, isn't it? And you could even open, how are you finding this? What are your thoughts? When I say that, I know with some of my clients, we've done reviews on one-to-one, and with some of them I have said, when, especially the younger children. So another tip for youngsters is when I say lockdown or social isolation, what does that mean to you? And if a child finds it really hard to articulate, you could even say, do you want to draw it? What comes to your head first? And then draw it, and then talk to me about this picture. So I would say, actually, you could do it with some teens that are quite creative. If they want to do that, that's fine. But especially with the younger children that might find it quite hard to articulate, using visual, allowing them to draw pictures is a good way to gain what's going on, how they're viewing things.
So the one thing I've started to think about is that you've got somebody that what I'm trying to say. There's somebody you're unsure if they want to speak or if they want to be left alone. But you're unsure if the ramifications are. They could be a ticking time bomb if they're left alone, or they need to talk, or it's just that whole. How do you tell the difference between the two?
Parents will know. Parents know their kids. Even medical doctors will even say, when somebody takes their child in an appointment, they listen to the parents, because parents do know their kids. So you will see their mannerisms. You'll see if your child is quieter than usual, or isolating a bit more in their room, or just being quiet, being a bit more quieter about what they're talking about, or you'll know if it doesn't feel right, then do just check in with them. How are you getting on? We've been here. You can open it up with that general, it's been 6 weeks. And also a good way, especially with the teens, is actually be honest about how you feel. Share about how you're feeling, how you're dealing with things. How do you see things as well? It's not having a complete adult conversation, but just allowing some adult sentences in there, because obviously, they want to know that you're still there to look after them, but actually it'll be helpful for them to see that you're human too, and that you find it quite stressful, but together you're strong.
Okay, well that makes perfect sense. Sort of you're sharing and their understanding that you maybe are concerned or thinking about the same things they are, and it's all perfectly fine.
Yeah, definitely. I will also say to parents that, especially ones that are working, that haven't got a lot of time with their kids until in the evening, and then kids either go to bed or teenagers go and chat with their friends, that think about, if you got a garden, or if you get out to do that little bit of exercise, maybe a walk locally, just take your older child with you and have a catch up. Just go out for a walk with them and just have a chat about things general chit chat. You will be surprised the amount of personal detail that comes from teens when you do that, and there is no pressure.
So, okay, so I'm going to move up an age group. So kids are important, but I move to the big one. Partners, dealing with partners. Never go to bed on an argument, was what I was always told. Never go to bed on an argument. Not entirely sure whether that's true in quarantine or not. I don't know, but it's obviously a big area of worry for the government, and potentially domestic abuse, mental health issues, all sorts. Same strategies in a different way.
There are extras that we can do here. It's a big area. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to drink coffee at the moment. I wish I had a cup of coffee, give me the energy to really. What I would say, and just to quickly get it out there, if people are feeling, and that this is a different level, at risk that they are in a risky environment. You know, the emergency services are still working, the police are still working. Please dial your emergency services for that support. The police have been really good at responding to things, because it is a major concern for those risk families, especially of domestic abuse. It's not a thing to be taken lightly. I hope people are okay, but please call the emergency services if you need it. They'll be there. When it comes to everyday communication, a bit like with the kids, we're under the same roof, everybody's busy differently, but there might be everybody's feeling the strain of being in lockdown, worrying about what's going on in the world outside as we see it, and even on our doorsteps, and therefore you are feeling that stress and that everyday pressure, but you might find it difficult to express how you feel to your partner. Maybe you don't want to, because you feel that you don't want to be a burden, that they're going through the same stressors and you want to stay strong, or you want to say something important. It doesn't come natural to you to express how you feel. There's a lot of people like that doesn't come natural, or you're worried of the reaction from your partner as well. And what I would say in those circumstances is try and be, and I'll explain what they mean, is try and be assertive with your communication. So I want to test you, Toby. So when I say assertiveness, being assertive, what does that, what comes up in your mind? What's an assertive person, do you think?
Tricky one. So saying obviously what you mean. Sometimes what comes up in my mind when people talk about assertiveness is almost being dominant, which I don't think is what assertiveness is. But I think it's, for one of different phrases, it's almost just like fighting your corner, saying what you think, what you believe, and that's what I think assertiveness is. I think it's very easy to trip from from assertiveness to megalomaniac.
So you got most of it right.
Oh, good.
So you did get most of it right. So assertiveness is the opportunity to say what is important to you. However, fighting your corner in a way that you need to say something important, but you're not getting ready for a battle. In other words, not being aggressive with your communication. So the other two communications are passive communication and aggressive communication. Passive is when we find ourselves, it's one-sided, where somebody is talking at you and you feel you can't get your point across for whatever reasons. You might be tired, you might feel intimidated, and then you get quieter and quieter and quieter, and you don't say what's important to you, and you just carry that load in you. Aggressive communication is similar to passiveness. It's one-sided again, but this time you're the other person who is doing all the talking, getting your point across to the person, but without allowing the recipient to then communicate their viewpoints as well. So what assertiveness is, which isn't aggression, and a lot of people think it's aggressive communication, and it's not. It's the middle ground. What it is the opportunity for you to say something important to somebody with the hope that you will be listened to, but then with the aim of pausing, allowing the person to digest what's being said, and then giving their opinion, with then the aim that you both come up with a common solution together. So you're meeting halfway. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's assertive communication. And what I would say to people, one of the first things to do is, I mean, it's a bit tricky now, we're all under the same roof, but try and pick your timing as best as you can. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be perfect timing, but it might mean the kids have gone to bed, or you're just having dinner together, or you're watching a program that it's quiet and you can pause and both just have a quick chat, or you go out, if you've got a garden, you go out and have a talk. If you've got older kids and they're okay at home for about 15 minutes, you guys go for a walk outside, you know. So the point is that you're alone. If you've got family, the children aren't around, because it's a distraction. You need to then deal with the family, and you feel like your message was diluted, and the person won't quite gain, even though they hear the message, they won't quite gain the importance of the message. So that's the first step. The second one is then, which you mentioned, is owning what you're saying. And what you can do is you first say to the person that I want to tell you something that's been on my mind. It's really important because I want you to understand what I'm saying, so together we can figure it out, and I want to hear your opinion as well. So you're setting the scene, so to speak. And then after that, what you need to do is then start describing what is on your mind, but you're describing it in a way that it's your perception. You're not describing what the other person, you're hoping the other person can see, but you're describing what you can see and what you envisage. So a point could be, I feel that I'm in this house. I know we're all busy, but I'm doing all the cooking all the time. Yeah, so as an everyday example. And if you can see, I'm using the term I a lot, because this is about you giving your message about you to them, and also keeping away from the word you, because at that point you start labeling. That's when the aggression kicks in. You don't do this, you do this, you don't do that. The other person will have a chance to talk about what they see shortly. After you've described what you perceive, the next step is them describing how it makes you feel. Because I'm doing all the cooking every day, I feel really tired. I feel like I'm a workhorse and I'm not doing anything else. Yeah. So again, you're keeping to the I, because it's a chance to describe your perception and your feeling. After that, you propose a solution. So you could say, I know that we are all busy, but I think maybe we could plan together a timetable and take turns on who does the cooking. And then after you've made the proposal, what would help the other person is then see an outcome of that proposal. If we do this, I envisage it will give me more time to carry on with my work and the schoolwork with the kids, or just to do something for myself. And by sharing it, it doesn't take too much of your time and your work. So you can bring in the your in that bit when it's the solution, just not at the beginning. But what's really important at this point, to actually magnify that things do need to change one way or the other, is to then say a consequence. I think if I carry on doing what I'm doing, I'm going to get really tired. I'm going to get really burnt out because I've got other commitments, and I need help right now. I need us to work together more and figure something out. And then there's the pause, allowing the other person to digest what's being said, allowing the other person to say their opinion, because they might see something different, a different angle. And at that point, you, as the person who opened up the dialogue, really do need to just hold back and listen to everything, and then together come up with a solution. And so it's easier said than done. It really is, especially when you've got emotional investment with somebody. But it's a start. It's a start.
It's a path.
Exactly. So how does that sound, Toby?
It's. I think pick your moment is good advice. Yeah, we all know how it is, and sometimes things get out of hand and whatnot. But it's just I think following those strategies is probably a very good way to go. You also allowing that pause for people to think about that. Actually, you know, when blood's up, sometimes you never allow the pause. You never. It's straight. But if you allow that pause, and hang on, what is that person actually saying, or rather, what do they actually mean? sometimes that's two very different things.
Yeah.
What do they actually mean? And then trying to find a way out of that, I think, is a great thing. Yeah.
And actually, you picked up a really important point there, where when the other person's paused and they're saying what they perceive, if you don't quite understand what they're saying, or you need a bit more information, do say, can you just, what do you mean when you say this? So I understand. And really do say the point why you're asking, so you understand. You're not going in with the argument, what do you say when you mean this? But more of, what do you say when you mean this, so I understand. If you find yourself getting into a heated argument, my advice would be to say to the person that, you know, this is escalating into something that we're going to end up arguing. Separate yourselves, go into separate rooms. This is what we do in crisis units. If there is a massive argument going on, you separate people into different environments. It's quite surprising how aggression can dissipate quite quickly. Have some space, have as long as you need. Talk to each other later on. So this is about finding a time when you're not relaxed, we're all tired, but finding a quiet time to yourselves and checking in and talking about, if you are struggling, really do talk to your partner about it, because also it might allow them to open the conversation and be honest about what they're struggling with, and that brings people closer when they feel they're helping each other.
Yeah. Absolutely. When people are speaking open and honest, then it's more intimate, isn't it? You get closer. But having said that, that leads on to the natural point where aggression becomes, you've mentioned it already, that if that aggression is ramped up and it's not dissipating and it's not going anywhere and it's one-sided, get in contact with the emergency services and take your way. Is as simple as that, and then maybe come back at another point, but don't stay.
Yeah, when it starts being risk and abuse, then you do need to dial your emergency services. In the UK, it's 999. Talk to the police; they will assist you.
But on a happier note, it's a learning process, and the key is just to keep talking and you learn, I suppose, with every step, and you learn with every sentence, you learn with everything you hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I hope that was helpful.
It was helpful. I think a lot of people will be trying to, hopefully a lot of people will be trying to bear those words in mind as they go forward through this, because I think we're probably going to be here another 3 weeks, potentially longer, but not another 3 weeks. So it's a timely thing to be saying right now. But we're just going to bring this one to a halt now, so we take care of Giga's throat. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your words. I suppose when you're back up and running, you'll be doing your services and your full appointments.
Yeah.
The healthy mindset in Seven Oaks.
Yeah.
But if anyone's got any questions, get in contact, comment, and we'll happily tackle them. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Toby. Bye for now.
Bye, Dr. Kika. Bye.